Hello grade 6s, welcome to our final project for the ancient Greek unit that we're doing. And typically we would be doing a simulation right now where you get to start forming a government, making laws, competing with other city-states for resources and for territory and influence, and it would have been so much fun. But I think this might be a fun way, an alternative for doing our ancient Greek studies. And so what I want you to imagine right now is that you are the writer and editor of a textbook, okay? You get to tell the stories from ancient Greece, and you'll each group will get a city of their choice that they get to look into, do the research, and kind of make like an online textbook / museum exhibit for life today, because everything is virtual, because COVID 2021, the world is moving so fast. So now this is a resource for other kids, maybe in next year's class. They can come to it and be like, oh, I want to learn more about this ancient Greek city. And they can go to yours and they'll watch the videos, do the questions, all those kinds of things, and they'll learn a lot. So what you will do is, and I'll explain more in class, but you will be creating a online textbook. If you want to know what a textbook is, I'll send you photos of a real textbook chapter, but each group will be writing a chapter of the textbook, and then maybe next year I'll get another class to add to it. So you are going to be retelling the story as if someone is reading it for the first time, they don't know anything, and then at the end you'll have a fun video to teach people, because kids all want to learn. I want you to think about this being a resource for kids maybe in grade 3 or grade 4, teaching them about ancient Greece. There's the bell. Okay, so step number 1, you need to gather with groups. Mr. Chris will do that in class. After you have a group, you need to choose an ancient Greek city. There's a link to a whole bunch of ancient Greek cities. Now I know the first ones are going to be Sparta and Athens, but I'm probably not going to let you do those ones right away. There's a lot of other ones. Philippi, Corinthia, there's all these other places. But right now, choose a city, get it approved by Mr. Chris, and then after you have that, you'll create a list of 10 questions, research inquiry questions, and there'll be a video to help you do that. I know you can do it, but these questions are questions you need to ask in order to learn the whole story, culture, traditions of this city that you're researching and making your textbook about. Then you create a plan. I have that plan outlined for you. Begin working on answering those questions. I will approve of those. Step number 2, you research each question. You will have to choose a reliable source, so whether that's an artifact, document, whatever it is, and you'll explain why it's a reliable source. So in a sentence or two, it's a primary source, it's about this, it's written by this person, it's from this city or whatever. Then you'll paraphrase the information that you're learning from. So I understand that you might only have one question you want answered, but you'll be gaining a lot more knowledge from that source than just the answer to your question. So paraphrase what it's all about, because it might come in handy for another question that you might be answering. And then you don't have to do this part again. You just copy and paste using the same source to answer more than one question, which happens all the time. After that, once you've answered the questions, you use those questions and you retell the story of the city in your own words, starting with an intro, body paragraphs, conclusion. Once you've written that, you're getting ready to post it online, and I will send you editing rights to a website. So one person in your group will be in charge of putting it all on there, making it look nice, where you'll be retelling the story of the city, starting with the intro, conclusion. Then after that, you post it on, or you're getting ready to post it online. So you have photos if you need it, timelines, terms, artifacts, reflection questions, Christian perspective, and 20 quiz questions. These quiz questions will be very important because as we learn and read each other's, you will be taking quiz questions from other people's projects. So step number 5 is you'll write a script, and at the very end you'll be making a video to teach people about your website in a fun way, like kids, things like that. It's not just going to be you reading your words. It's going to be a fun, creative way for kids to help them understand. Then a bibliography, that's a works cited page, and it's all uploaded on ManageBack. So step number 1, first things first, in this line here, right? Write your group or your city and your group members. Who are your group mates? Step number 1, we also have here the person in charge of making sure it's finished. Now, everyone is going to participate in making the research questions. Everyone's going to participate in the timeline, because as you're learning about events, you'll add them to the timeline. The person working on it, the person who is in charge of it, is the person here. So when it's finished or it's not finished, I can say, oh, there's no intro paragraph. Who's in charge of that? Oh, Tadeo, why haven't you finished this? I see your name here for your group. Get on it. Right? Those things are all accountable. Timelines, photos, those kinds of things, quiz questions. You're all going to be doing those together because they're all going to come out of your research, out of the different parts that you do. Remember, you're retelling the story. Once you have this, all the roles given, everyone works together to create 10 strong inquiry questions that will guide your learning for retelling the story of your city. Because every city has a story, even Jakarta. So those are the 10 inquiry questions. There's a video in the description of the task in ManageBack. You can click on that on how to make strong inquiry questions for IS. Once you've done that, you'll take question number 1, highlight it, and you'll paste it right here in this box. Here, that's the question you're answering. Then you'll find your source where you're going to be answering your question. In here, you'll analyze the source. You can see that. Analyze the source. Tell me why the source is reliable and trustworthy. Is it a primary source? Is it from that age? Why is it something that is going to give you information that's reliable? Then you paraphrase everything that you've learned from this source. Not just the answer to the question, but if it's talking about agriculture or culture or religion at that time, but also the event that you are learning about, maybe the war, right? You'll put it all in there. You'll summarize. Oh, this one talks about the culture and how they used to sacrifice and put a high emphasis on having children or sacrificing goats or whatever it is. So you put that in there. So that's a big summary of what you learned from this source. The link, so that you can put that in your works cited really easily. And then the answer to the question number 1. Now, that's always one paragraph, 5 or more sentences. Maybe question number 1 and question number 2 have different sources. So you would do the same thing with a different source. But maybe question number 3, you use the same source as question number 1, and you can copy and paste your source analysis and paraphrased information in here. Put your question number 3 in, and then your same link, and then you answer the question. So you'll save time by doing it once well and then being able to put it other places where you use it. So do that 10 times. After you've done that 10 times, make sure you have a timeline of the events. There has to be at least 10 events, and these are the big ones for sure and other ones. So I don't need to know about the king's birthday every year. I assume the king is going to have a birthday every year, but the kings don't die every year, right? The kings aren't put into power every year, right? There aren't battles every year. There aren't famines or things like that. So make sure you're getting those into the timeline to help people learn about the city. Then step number 3 is, once you're finished step 1 and 2, now you start retelling the story. So you need an intro with a hook, all right? Get people engaged, like, oh wow, this city built with fashion and gold, or temples and whatever. And so then the intro and then body paragraphs. You have to have at least 8 body paragraphs, and these are not you copying and pasting the questions and answers that you have above. It's retelling the story. It's as if you go into a movie, right? And they don't just sit down and say like, oh, I have a question about Hercules, right? And they say, oh, well, he lived in this time and this time, right? No, it's a story. You want people to be drawn in and understand. And then the conclusion, what do we learn? Christian perspective. We have videos on how to write that, and we practiced that last semester. I know I'm going a little long here. Step number 4 is term words. So you might have noticed in your reading yesterday, or from the last time we had a reading, that you'll be reading these texts and then there'll be a word that's bolded. Okay? Those bolded words are called terms. These terms are either important words or words that might not be known to you. They might relate to kingdoms. They might relate to economic terms or religious terms or traditional terms. And what you can do with those words is they're bolded, but you can flip to the back and you can find the definition and what they are. So if it's, right, if we're talking about Athens, right? And we have Solon on there. And so like, oh, who's that? It's bolded. I can go back. I can go see, oh, right? He was the chief magistrate of Athens during this time. He became a tyrant leader for this amount of time, right? And so you learn about him without having to explain it all every single time. And so you need 10 words that are significant and important for learning. Once you're done it all, then you become the teacher and you write quiz questions. So after people are finished reading these, you'll take turn reading each other's chapters, but reading them, they're going to read your chapter, watch your video, and then at the end they're going to take a 20-question quiz. So you create the quiz questions with the correct answer. So question and then answer, and then we will have a time of doing that. And then also reflection questions. How do we get people to think critically? Open-ended, like questions like, how did this affect the people at the time? What have we learned? How do we see the influence of Greek culture or this city today? Then any extra photos that you might have used or would need for your website, those will help make the reader engaged. Extra sources that you didn't use for questioning, but those would probably be from your photos or your timeline, those kinds of things. And then you write your video script. Remember, it's only 5 to 10 minutes long, which isn't bad, where you are teaching about your kingdom. Now, you don't have to touch everything that you have above, but you need to give them a clear and fun and engaging understanding of it. Create your works cited. That's where you collect all your extra sources and your sources from in here, source links. Put them all into MLA format, and then we post it all to the website. That'll take about a day and a half, and I will give you all the instructions in another video on how to do that. But if you have questions, please ask. I will be around to answer them.